You're listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia. I'm Glen, and I'm joined by my co-host tonight, George. Wole and Mo are out. George, what's up, man? We got the keys to the keys to the castle today, George. What's going on?
Yeah, and we're gonna keep this train on track. And I'm at my stepdad, so I'm enjoying the Eagles struggling with the Giants. That's been kind of fun so far.
It is definitely fun there. But George, take us to our opening, brother.
All right. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and all your other fine podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Gold Errrything, 3 R's. Also tweet us at ABG_Errrything, 3 R's, and hit us up on IG and TikTok at ABG_Errrything, 3 R's. Make sure you subscribe to the All Burgundy and Gold Errrything YouTube channel. If you're in the chat, we accept super chats. They help support the show, and we will prioritize them over all the other comments in the chat. We are also on the Urban Sports Scene X account. Glenn.
Yo, it's time for the pregame. Here's what we have on tap. We're going to debate which Commanders is most needed back from injury. We know that we have a series of Commanders that are injured. We have some that potentially may be back this week. We have, again, in the press conference this week, today, Dan Quinn mentioned that Noah Brown did practice. Terry McLaurin did not practice. Sam Cosmi practice today and will practice tomorrow in full pads. He's been working with the scout team and the first team, so we'll see how that moves on as well. So, hey, here it is. If you could, George, if you could get one player back at full health right now, who would make the biggest difference to the Washington Commanders as they move in their playoffs hopes? And that's a question for the guys in the chat as well. Yo, if you could get one player back, right, at full health right now, who would make the biggest difference for the Washington Commanders?
There are circumstances where I would have absolutely said Sam Cosmi. I think we were all concerned knowing that there was a chance that he might not be able to play this entire season. I think we were all worried about the offensive line, even with all the upgrades that had been made, that the front office had made. But that's not the case right now. Not the way those guys are playing. Not the way Chris Paul has stepped up. Andrew Wiley, some of these guys we wouldn't have expected. Brandon Coleman is a healthy scratch every week. I dare say that Washington can afford to be more conservative with Sam Cosmi, which, of course, I would prefer. I was on team red shirt for him all year. So it's got to be Terry McLaurin, because even though the receivers that are healthy have improved and they have produced, I mean, you only have to look at last week, the fact that this team moved the football and Jaden Daniels had such an explosive second half and really into the first half too, without throwing the ball to Zach Ertz hardly. Zach Ertz didn't catch one ball last week. And yet, without his security blanket, Jaden Daniels operated the offense at a very high level, especially after halftime. We still need help at receiver. Terry McLaurin can give us that help. And in my opinion, the receivers are at least doing well enough that I think they're willing to wait another week, and that's probably the right decision. Not having a preseason, Terry McLaurin's got this quad injury. You got to be careful with that, because those can turn into 7-8 week injuries real fast.
Yeah, I'm happy. There's two things I'm happy. One, I'm happy Zach Ertz didn't catch a pass last week, because it wasn't me my fantasy league, right? It really did. The guy had Zach Ertz, and I won by 0.35, right? So again, I'm happy that Zach Ertz did not catch a pass last week, but nonetheless, it moves on. I really think the person that Washington is said this. I was a guy that said always liked Terry McLaurin, but this team has proven that they can win without Terry McLaurin. Whether you like it or not, right? Whether you care for it or not, whether you are a believer or not, this team has won football games without Terry, right? We want Terry to get healed up. We want Terry to get 100%. Terry, we want Sam. This team has proven that they've run into football. I think they're leading the league in rushing right now with leads, and they're doing it without Sam Cosmi, right? They're doing it without a Brandon Coleman. They're doing it with a Chris Paul, right, who really improved. They're doing it with a Wole, who we wanted to get rid of a couple of weeks last year and months ago, right? One day got to come back, right? So they're improved there. But the one that really, like I said, the secondary, Will Harris. We saw Jeremy Reeves, who stepped up since Will Harris been gone, right? We've seen Dorrance Armstrong, right, pick his game up because of when Dietrich Wise is gone, right? So we've seen there's been a lot of key injuries for this Washington Commanders team, but there's been guys to step up. So if I had to really put one that I really want to see back right now, and it was not because of performance, not because of what I think they can do, but the value they add to the team, and because he got paid, Terry McLaurin, right? I don't want the narrative to be that Terry got paid, got hurt, and didn't perform this year, right? Can we be honest? Because that's the narrative that people are giving right now. That Terry McLaurin got paid, got hurt, right, and not playing. Now again, we all know the injury is serious. As Dan Quinn said today, he won't practice today, but they're gonna take it day by day to get an extra day. We'll see how he'll progress if he plays on Monday or not. But so I think Terry is that guy that everybody wants to see, right? Which commander is most needed back? I know that's still so misleading because we said needed back. I don't think Terry is needed back. I think Terry is wanted back, right? We want to see him perform. I don't think he's needed back. You guys in the chat, let me know, is Terry McLaurin needed back or is he wanted back? There's a big difference, right?
Michael Underwood is saying Terry ain't scary. He's definitely going to get it in while Wole isn't here because we're not going to be as tough on Michael for those comments.
No,
needed back is an interesting qualifier because if you take just the second half against the Chargers, you could very well make the case that they don't need any of these injured players back. That's how well they played in LA. You could make that case that if they could play to that level the rest of the season and not have anybody else get hurt, they're going to be a pretty good football team. They did a pretty good job. I mean, there were moments, we talked about that on Sunday. A lot of self-sabotage from the Chargers that helped Washington out, for sure. But if you just take that second half, you could make the argument they don't need any of them back. Really, you could. I feel like what you're saying about Terry, that he's not needed back, but we want him back, I think that applies to Cosmi because of how well the offensive line is going. And that's going to be the tough thing because Cosmi's practicing this week. And other than, we're just being very cautious and we have a 21-day window, we don't have to make a decision yet. That can work for another week. But if Cosmi feels good and he's actually clears all the tests and clears all the physical tests that he's got to take, and the doctors pass him fit and say, hey, he's cleared to play, you can't not play him. You paying him the bag. He's your stud all-pro or near all-pro guard. And then what happens? What do you do with Chris Paul? What do you do with Andrew Wiley? Can you really send Chris Paul to the bench when he's playing this well?
And that's the question, right? Because you want to make the difference. You want this team to be moving forward in the playoffs, but you also don't want to break up the chemistry, right? The chemistry has what's been there has been working. You mentioned they gave Sam Cosmi a whole bunch of money, right? You gave Terry a whole bunch of money, right? This team, Dan Quinn has already said it. A lot of guys have already said it. It's the next man up mentality, right? You want the next guy up. So we want Terry to be back. And so you want those guys. You want Terry back. You want Sam to be back. You want this team to be at full strength to see what they can do, what they're doing well right now. We'll come back to that part in a minute. The other question I have for you, George, we know that we talked about I just mentioned the next man up mentality, right? So with having the next man up mentality, which player has benefited the most from one of the other players being injured?
That's an easy one for me. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt. And one of my dear friends from college used to say sometimes injuries help. We would not have the running game we've got if Austin Ekeler was still healthy because Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt wouldn't be getting the carries he's got. And Paul, you said something very interesting that is a thread I want to kind of pull either now or later. Paul said, with the emergence of Bill, I can't wait for Terry to get fully healthy. And Paul, I love that comment because that really is the thing that Terry needs, even more than other receivers, to help. He's got Deebo Samuel, which helps to begin with, but that having a running game that is that lethal and causes teams to have to put 7 and 8 in the box, that's really what's going to make Terry scary again. That's what can make Terry a guy that goes for explosive plays like the one we saw before he got hurt in Game 3 against. Now I'm drawing a blank. Who was against? I'm sorry.
Game 3 was
but
the Raiders.
It's the Raiders. So I think that's where that's a great point, Paul. Bill, and the thing is, but we would not have had it if Ekeler hadn't got hurt. And that's a little frustrating because, we were saying on this show, you, I, and Wole, you got to be careful with Ekeler, his age, his injuries. You can't overuse him. They were clearly overusing him the first 2 weeks. And I think that contributed to his injury. Now you've got Bill. He's clearly the centerpiece. This was the vision Paul had, I had, others who were really early on that bandwagon had with this guy. You're seeing it. And I still want to see Chris Rodriguez and McNichols get chances too. But it really, the emergence of Bill could not have happened without Austin Ekeler. And it's absolutely huge for this team. So for me, it's Bill, without a shadow of a doubt.
Now, I want to talk about Bill a little bit more today because in the press conference earlier today, Cliff Kingsbury talked about that. He talked about Bill, how Bill would sneak into first-team reps in training camp, right? And next thing you know, they looked up and Bill was there. The competitiveness of Bill being there. But he also mentioned, too, that how Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez are guys that can start in this league, right? They can start in this team right now. And they're doing everything, and everything they do correctly. They do it 100%, right? I know I wasn't a big Jeremy McNichols fan until a couple of weeks until we started the season, but McNichols does things right. He runs hard, right? We saw that against, I believe that was Atlanta or the Raiders when he broke that one off and ran for a touchdown. But even with Bill, I think he's still running back. I like Bill, but I still think it's running back by committee. Bill is still escalating himself and putting himself to that starting role. But I still think Cliff Kingsbury and the Washington Commanders will still you'll see Chris Rodriguez, because we saw Chris Rodriguez late, right? Even though Bill had broke it off and had over 111 yards, you still saw Chris Rodriguez. You still saw Jeremy McNichols when it was time to close the football game out. Bill is getting there. He's still a rookie. I think he will ascend to that spot. But again, this team is a run by committee team. And yes, Bill has benefited from the fact that Austin Ekeler was hurt and he was injured. There's several players who benefited, right, because of injury. Can we be on? Mike, I'm going to just give some flowers, right? Luke McCaffrey has really came into his own because of the injury to Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, right? Luke doesn't get all these touches or these opportunities to make plays if Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are healthy. So Luke is making the best of his time on the field. Now, when they come back, Luke going to go back to his spot where he has been at. They might have a couple packages for him, but it's still going to be Terry and Noah Brown's show, along with Deebo Samuels, right? I also want to throw Deebo in there because Deebo has benefited from Terry being hurt as well, right? Deebo has gotten more reps, or more touches per se. He was going to get touches anyway, but I think his touches really has increased now. He's finding better ways to get open.
He's playing like a number one receiver, and people were saying, "Oh, he's a great number two." Looks like a number one receiver to me right now, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about it too. Okay, let's go here. Chris Paul, right? We talked about earlier.
Oh, yes.
Right. Due to an injury, Chris Paul last year wasn't the guy, and I'm not talking about the basketball player Chris Paul. We had Chris Paul and Wiley had issues last year, but Chris Paul has stepped up because of the injuries to Sam Cosmi, right? I mean, everybody thought it was going to be Brandon Coleman. Can we be honest? We thought Brandon Coleman was going to get moved to the guard spot, right?
Yeah.
And then we thought Coleman was going to be there. But again, guys like Chris Paul and Wiley have stepped up where we now find Brandon Coleman in a position for healthy scratches, right? The players are Paul to Paul's point, and Taj, I see your question too. All right, they're developing players at a good rate. Players, that's the point right there.
Great point, Paul.
That this coaching staff has developed players or have been developing players that at the next to take the next man's spot. Right, Dan Quinn has been preaching that ever since he came to Washington last year. Next man up mentality. Right, it's the next man up, and we're starting to see the next man up mentality. We're starting to see guys. Plug and play. We saw with Marcus Mariota when Jaden went down, right? Let's be honest. We've seen it in the running backs, right? We've seen it on the D line. Look at Doris Armstrong. His play has gotten better. Deron Payne play has got better. Johnny Newton, has gotten better, right? So do we see guys who are stepping up because people are injured? And we can go on. Let's go. Taj says this. He says, question 2, we keep this pace as an offense. It is clear that Debo is a vital weapon, number 1 or number 2. What happens this offseason? Do we trade Terry? Can we afford both? Me start. And you're not starting trouble, but that's a valid question. I think you can afford both. I think that you can. I think you can afford. I think you can afford both of these guys, right? Who you have to pay this summer, Taj? You have to pay Larry Tunsil, right? Larry Tunsil has to get paid, and most of the other people are on 1-year deal, 1-year contracts. You can imagine Bobby Wagner. This is it for Bobby Wagner. You can imagine this is it for Zach Ertz, right? So you can say those 2 guys are done, though. So you'll get that money back that you could probably slide to somewhere else, and then you can insert some other guys too. I dare not say that Noah Brown may be done if he can't test the field with the Washington Commanders. So again, I think you can keep Debo Samuels and Terry McLaurin on the same team and have a solid 1 and 2, 1A, 1B receiving core with Debo and Terry, because you look at other teams, you look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati has 2, Higgins and Chase, right? So you have big players. You have teams that have 2-star receivers on their team, and I think Washington can make it work with the money that they have. George?
Well, and the trade Terry thing. Now that he signed a long-term contract, you're not going to get value for him in a trade. So I'm not having that. And honestly, it's great Debo's doing what he's doing. And yes, you can make the argument that we can afford both of them. But Debo right now is looking at a lot of money and a lot of years if he keeps this up. If he keeps this up, to me, he might be beyond the years and the money that we can't afford to give him. So, and I want folks to remember that the previous several years, Terry didn't miss a game and produce. So this notion that all of a sudden he's not, that this is it, he's hurt and he's not going to be the player he was again, I don't buy that yet. I think that we got to wait and see on that before we make that formulation. Right now, today, Michael Underwood, that's a fair point. Debo's worth more than Terry right now today, but that's not the whole picture. And let's remember this too. Debo's got his own injury history you got to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you got to think about as well. Because look, if Debo keeps this up, then similar numbers to what Terry's making right now are going to be on offer for him. So that's something you got to think about if you're Washington, because other teams are looking at this and going, "Oh, Debo's not washed, he's not fat, and look at him produce."
Yeah,
and he is producing.
And I think people hitting the panic button too much. Man, Terry got 1 injury in 6 years, right? 6 or 7 years that he's missed games. He hasn't missed games, so he's not washed up. The money will be well worth it that you give this guy the money. I'm not saying not to give Terry. I'm not even saying Terry can't continue to do what he needs to do for the Washington Commanders. Let's be honest. The man sold out. If he hurt his hamstring or hurt his quad, like he said, he was hurt his quad trying to score a touchdown, right? Stretching out into the end zone. So he's
scoring and probably did score a touchdown. I don't care what that stupid replay says.
So I'm not don't sell out this guy because he's been injured. A lot of players been injured and came back, right? People wasn't talking about Jonathan Allen last year, who sold his body out and came back for this organization in the playoffs. Mike, I see your comment about Deron Payne. Let's be honest. I think I've said it, and I've been a big proponent of saying it all year. We knew we were going to get a big year out of Deron Payne because it was going to be a contract year. I think you can get rid of Deron Payne. right? I think you can get rid of
Mhm.
Deron Payne and save that money and give that money to somebody else. Because you have defensive linemen who are well capable, and able to refill Deron Payne's place, right? Only time will tell what the Washington Commanders would do with Deron Payne. So, if anything, you get rid of
And
Luke. To be honest,
no, you're not getting
no,
rid of Luke.
I'm just
You know,
joking.
he's cheap.
I'm just joking. He's on a rookie deal. I'm just messing around.
No, and I want to make this point for all the talking about trade Terry and re-sign Debo. Debo will be turning 30 this January. So think, all of you that had the same reluctance to sign Terry because of his age, don't you got to keep that same energy with Debo? So I mean, that's and again, I expect, and I think the fact is, and somebody else, and I think it was posted in the chat, you can take your time with Terry coming back, wait for him to be 100%. That's the right thing to do. And I think if you do that, he's going to come back and be productive. Because Paul said something else in that chat I thought was interesting. He's talking about Terry is arguably the third option behind Debo and Bill when he comes back. That's a pretty dangerous offense if that's true. And it's also going to make Terry that more dangerous. And again, I don't think it stays that way. I think he becomes the number one option again. But the opponents are going to treat him like he's still the number one option, which is going to help everybody. Michael Underwood, I don't necessarily agree with you there. Again, if you don't like the fact that Terry's just got hurt and then he's 30 and all this, you gotta look at Debo the same way when he's turning 30 this January. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to point that out so that we could do that and be fair and be even in our commentary and try to show all sides of this. So I'm fairly confident that Terry's going to get it back, and he's going to get back on the same page with Jaden, which is the key thing. And I'm also confident that he's going to produce big time, because look at these weapons that are coming up around him. Bill has sprung up. Debo is Debo again. Or Debo is Debo almost as good as he was when he was in San Francisco again this year.
You also got
You
Jalen
still
Lane.
have Zach Ertz, even though he didn't catch a pass last week. You've got the emergence of Luke McCaffrey. That's monstrous. I mean, for me, the biggest key is we got to get healthy at wide receiver. So I have to watch Chris Moore drop another damn pass again, because I'm sick of Chris Moore, and I'm still not going to be over that drop.
Right. Well, that's why
Michael Underwood, Debo's not always been Debo. Debo was hurt in San Francisco last year. He's been hurt a lot. When he's healthy, he's fantastic. He's not always been healthy. He certainly hasn't been as healthy as Terry's been throughout his career. Let's get that straight right now.
Has not been. I mean, that's why you got guys like Jalen Lane, right? The wide receiver room, there's a lot of guys in the wide receiver room who's been helping this Washington Commanders team march and get to the record where they're at right now. Guys have been helping us. Again, I said Jalen Lane has helped out. You had guys like mentioned Luke has helped out. So it's been run by committee, but they are making a difference because of the skill set. And I think this is taking too much too. Guys like coaches like Bobby Ingram has made a big difference in that wide receiver room, and has made a big difference for a Luke McCaffrey, right? So again, the coaching staff has to get credit because they're coaching guys, right? Daryl Tapp, right? Ken Norton Jr. are making big difference. The guys, look at the guys who stepped up this weekend for the Washington Commanders, the young guys, right? McGee, who stepped up, right? Because of that, finally stepped up. Again, you have to look at a Ken Norton Jr. who's helping him step up. Look at a guy like Johnny Newton who stepped up this week. Some of the plays that Johnny Newton made. Look at a guy like Daryl Tapp who's helping them step up. And that's all because they're getting opportunity because guys are hurt and gone. So we talk about this. I'm going to go back to the chat real quick. Todd says this. He says, regardless of what happened for the rest of the year, this team needs to draft some young, productive wide receivers because I don't trust Debo to stay healthy. Hey, Todd, I agree with you on that as well, right? I think Debo is good while he lasts. I think he's doing what we need to be done. I think we do. He's doing what he needs to do for his body to stay healthy, right? He was at OTAs, right? Debo was at OTAs. Debo was at training camp early. Debo was at all the veteran things that he probably wasn't mandatory to do. And he also knows the same thing for Deron Payne. Debo knows this is a contract year, right? Debo knows that he needs to get in shape. Debo knows that he needs to produce. Debo knows that he has some bonuses and incentives in this contract. But he also know that he's playing for 31 other teams just in case the Washington Commanders do not want to sign him. So he's motivated, right? When you're a motivated athlete, you're going to perform at the top level. And it does not hurt when the number one receiver for the organization is gone and you become that guy. And Debo has become that guy that's been safe for Marcus Mariota and for Jaden Daniels, right? I mean, it is a perfect tornado for Debo Samuels because Jaden Daniels is gone. I mean, excuse me, not Jaden. Terry McLaurin was gone. Noah Brown is gone. You're playing around young receivers, right? A Luke McCaffrey who's only been in the league for 2 years. A Jaden Lane who's only been there for 1. A Chris Moore who's kind of washed up, right? Who's been there. So again, you're playing on a team where you are the veteran and you're the healthy veteran. Who else is going to get the football, right? Who else is going to get? Where you have a Zach Ertz who has gotten balls in red zones and who's been productive, just wasn't productive this week. So it would be Debo Samuel. He's the most explosive guy on the field right now for the Washington Commanders. Some may argue Bill. So you want to put the ball in your playmaker's hands. And Debo Samuels right now is the only healthy really playmaker, right? Austin Ekeler's gone, right? So Debo's that playmaker that you needed the ball in his hands. Now, when everybody gets settled and everything gets back, Debo here, Terry's there, Noah's there, Bill is there. Some of the touches may go down. They will go down.
Oh, and let's remember two other things, and then I got to address some of the things that are being said in the chat. Something we saw last week that we have not seen all year: running backs catching the football. Both McNichols and Bill. I think that's going to be here to stay. I think you're going to see maybe not much more than what we saw last week, but you're going to see it. And that is, to me, that's another card for Kingsbury to play that he certainly hadn't played until now, other than with Ekeler. And that may be another point to where Ekeler's injury has helped, is that Kingsbury's realized, look, I don't have Austin Ekeler, but I need to give Jaden Daniels a safety valve other than Zach Ertz that he can bail out, throw to, and get 5 or 6 yards, and it's not very difficult. And when he did it last week, they produced. McNichols' big first down. Bill had like 39 yards receiving, and I think he had a couple big first downs catching the football. That's a card he's got to play. Ertz he can go back to. I mean, you're absolutely right about Debo's touches are going to go down. And let's remember, Jaden loves to spread the ball. And now Jaden has started to find a connection with McCaffrey. You know McCaffrey's going to get targets now. Maybe not a ton. He's still going to get them because now Jaden can see, I can throw to this guy and he's going to make the play. I mean, you don't get much tougher than that 50-yard bomb. Down the field, beautiful throw. That was a very tough catch anyway. And Luke snared it. Huge for his confidence, huge for Jaden's confidence in him. So that, I think you're absolutely right about the touches going down. And the point is that everybody's going to eat a little bit. Now we got to address this. Okay. And Michael, and this is where it's ridiculous because you're sitting here saying, well, Terry's not in the plan. Well, what about last year when Cliff Kingsbury was the offensive coordinator? Terry was in the plan then. He had 13 touchdowns, 82 catches. So that's just a nonsense comment. He's going to be in the plan when he's healthy enough to be in the plan. And remember, when all this was happening in training camp and this whole contract dispute was going on, Cliff Kingsbury's the one that made it a point of saying, we need to Terry back in here with us. So He's going to make him part of the plan. All right? Let's just deal with that. And then Taj said something about giving Daron Payne a contract extension.
Yeah, Taj said
he's having a very good year. There is nothing that'll make me do it. Not a thing. Not even a Super Bowl can make me do that.
Taj, I think I said it. Daron is playing very well. And listening to Joe Witt today in the press conference, Witt was like, what's being taught now fits in Daron Payne's wheelhouse, right? It's things that he's been taught before, things that he's comfortable with. The way that they asked Ryan Kerrigan and Daryl Tapp and those guys to teach or to coach this year, to stop the run, to change the defensive scheme or the defensive way they were blocking and protecting. I mean, and shedding off blocks. It works for Daron Payne. Spoke highly of Daron Payne. So it may be a sliver or a door or a crack, Taj. You may not be far off. They might offer Daron Payne, right? Because he is having a good year. And also because of some of the other guys are still on rookie deals or low contract deals, right? Daron Payne. But it goes back to me, the numbers have to make sense. Because again,
how team friendly can it be though? I mean,
right.
I don't think he's going to take a pay cut to stay, is he?
Right. I don't think he's going to take a pay cut. How team friendly can he be? Does he want to stay in Washington? Is that team friendly? Because again, Larry Tunsil has to get paid. We're talking about Deebo Samuels have to get paid. So there's other people that's on that has to get paid before Daron Payne does. Taj, go to Paul's question here. Who will replace Daron Payne? Right, George. I asked you that. If Daron Payne is gone, and we're only in week 5, and we're talking about next year, but we're talking about players who can replace. All right, which injured commander is most needed for those who are listening. If Daron Payne is gone or hurt, right, or let go, who's next?
You talked earlier, quite rightly, and not just you, but Paul and others in the chat talked about how good this team has been at developing players. Johnny Newton, it's your time, mister. If Daron Payne's gone, then you got to be the man, Johnny Newton. You got to be the man. And I will say, Taj, you make a really good point about in terms of re-signing Daron Payne back. Let me go and find it real quick about that. The lack of draft picks and the needs that we have, it might be in their interest. That's a fair point, Taj. And I think that's the strongest point you make in terms of re-signing Daron Payne is that we are going to have these needs. And I think quite clearly with the Jaden extension, not next year, but looming in the near future, it's going to be hard for them to shop at the front of the market in free agency. And we're going to be relying on the draft a lot. So I think that is fair. But if we can't sign Daron Payne back, then it's year 3 for Johnny Newton. He should be ready to be a major contributor that we expected him to be when he got drafted at 33rd overall, or not 33rd overall, it was 36th overall. He was in the top 5 of round 2 of the draft, I think, when we took him, or in the top 7 or 8 of the second round. And, me and quite a few other people were hyping him up as somebody who could be a major player for us. Well, if Daron Payne walks after this season, then Johnny Newton's going to have to be the guy. And they'll probably and it will add to their needs, and they'll probably need to draft somebody, which is going to draft. This is going to be a seriously important draft for them coming up. I don't think there's any question about it.
Hey, this is good. This is a good thing. It says this another word off to another world. Says this franchise Payne. He good because he's having fun again.
That's an interesting idea, but let's remember that means you're going to be paying him a lot more money. Granted, it's only for 1 year, and for 1 year you can take almost any contract, but you're going to be paying him the average of the top 5 defensive tackles, and that's going to make it harder to re-sign some of these other guys you want to re-sign. So I think that's going to be a question. I think that's going to be a difficult situation. I thought Tunsil still needed to be extended. Off to another world, saying he already got extended.
I think
that's right.
They restructured his contract. They redid a restructured deal and converted his salary to a bonus, adding 3 40 years, freeing up $14 million. So that's what they did. Yeah. They restructured it and redid it. They didn't re-extend him. They just restructured.
And so they might have redid the deal, but he's going to want a new deal. And right now, he's out of the guys we traded for in this previous offseason, he's absolutely the one that I'm saying, unless he gets a serious injury, unless he has a really terrible injury, 100% I'm extending Laramie Tunsil this offseason. 100%.
It is. So let's go back to what we were talking about earlier with here. And we talked about the offensive line, right? Guys in the chat, give me your thoughts here. We know Sam Cosmi is coming back, right? Who's the odd man out, George?
I mean, I guess it's Andrew Wiley, right? Andrew Wiley's got to be the odd man out because you can't send Chris Paul to the bench. He's playing too well, and there's a little bit of bias and emotion in that, in the sense that, he's a guy who kind of, getting drafted in round 7 by Ron Rivera. You talk about having the deck stacked against you, and for him to be here, 3 years later, and he's now playing and producing and showing that he's a legitimate he's a legitimate left guard in the NFL and belongs here. I can't send that man to the bench. So, I mean, and Wiley's unlucky. If that's what happens, Andrew Wiley's unlucky. But yeah, he's the odd man out.
I think he is too. Chris Paul is just playing too well, right? Paul is playing very well, and I think Wiley is that guy who's out. And we want injured players to come back. We want the injured players to come back. And Sam is on his way. He's coming, right? He's been practicing. We know that he's coming. I think my biggest fear, or as a fear of he's going to do well, right? In the offensive line. You don't want to break up the chemistry, right? Now, Sam comes back. Wiley's there. That means Brandon Coleman needs to find a home. And I hate to say it that way, right? That means read the clues.
His home is the bench. His home is the bench right now.
His home is the bench right now. Healthy scratches each and every week. Brandon Coleman. So that's one of the biggest guys that needs to come. Who's injured? Which injured commander is most needed back? I think is Sam, but I also believe it's Terry. I want to say Sam. If I had to pick one, I would say it's Sam, because you want to continue to run the game. You still want to continue to run the football. All right.
I mean, this offensive line is doing pretty well right now. To me, even though the receivers aren't doing bad, they're doing better than the receivers right now.
Right. But I mean, because you want to keep the running game going. The running game has opened everything up. The running game has opened everything up for this Washington Commanders team. Right. The Washington Commanders team, and they were averaging like 67 yards a carry. Right. So you want to be able to run the game, which helps Jaden out, right? Help Jaden with play action and passing. So I think Sam is very important. All right. Sam is very important. I'll go, Taj, I get to you one second. Tim says this. Tim says Allegretti will be the odd man out, in my view.
It's a fair point, too. I mean, Allegretti hasn't looked that good when he's been in there. So it just makes me wonder why Coleman's the one that's inactive and not Allegretti in some cases. So that's kind of interesting, too. That's a very good point, Timothy Park. I would agree with you on that. You just wonder what it's going to take for Coleman to get back in there at this point with what's been going on. I mean, I guess so. And that's the other thing. There's been a few people online talking about, maybe Washington will trade Brandon Coleman. It's like, no. Don't you do it.
He's not.
We just played the Chargers. You saw what happened to them. They got guys playing in preseason game 3 that's playing for them on the offensive line. And poor old Justin Herbert is getting the holy hell beat out of him. We will not be doing that to Jaden Daniels. We will not be thinning out our ranks in the offensive line. I don't care what we need.
Yeah, and I'm answering Taj's question. Dieter is the backup center. They brought him up last week to be the backup center from the practice squad. So he's on the main roster as well. So Dieter is the backup center.
And believe me, add that to the list of things we need, either in the free agency or the draft, is a better backup center than Dieter, because if Biotish goes down, we're in real trouble.
You definitely. Tosh says this. Here's the real question. Wiley's going to be not active along with Coleman. You have the starting 5 with Trent, Allegretti,
and Tan.
And Tan. The guy they signed as a swing tackle.
I mean, I think you're probably on the mark there. Well, I don't know. I can't see Wiley being inactive because he's played well. So to me, that's where Allegretti would probably not be active. Because they have to have Dieter. You would think they'd have to have Dieter because, I mean, I know they tried Allegretti at center, but that didn't go well. No. So I mean, unless he's the backup center, then you have to have Dieter being active too, right? So I think and yes, Santiago, you're absolutely right. Dieter was atrocious last year.
Yeah, high snaps.
That's one of the big reasons why they couldn't run the ball other than Jaden in December and January. was the fact that Dieter was in there and he was struggling.
Yeah, so we need, so they're looking for that. So backup players need to continue to be developed, right? Development needs to continue to happen. And so that's one of the things that Washington need to continue to do is develop players. And I think they've done that. I think they will be continue to do that. And bring who's next up, right? The offensive line is not the only place that players need to be developed. Wide receiver is not the only place that we've been on one side of the football, right? The other side of the football as well. We didn't even mention Jeremy Reeves, who has been successful because of Will Harris has been injured, right? We're going back to which injured commander is most needed. Some people say Will Harris on defense, but I'm going to say this.
And I would still say Will Harris because even with Reeves playing well, our secondary is still struggling. So we need all hands on deck. And you know what? Can we? I think that's a perfect segue into the next question that you put on the agenda for us, which I think is a good one. Is, are these injuries going to lead Washington to consider a trade at the deadline? Because they've used picks, they've traded a lot of draft picks now. At least they did last year's draft. They traded a lot of picks away to get players. And I'm not thrilled with the idea of having to trade a pick in next year's draft to get somebody. But is that something that we should consider? Should we consider a move for a linebacker or somebody in the secondary, a corner, or even on the defensive line? What are we? Because in my opinion, that's what you're looking at. If you're going to make a trade and trade a draft pick at the deadline for somebody, it's got to be somebody on defense.
And I think so too. I think it has to be somebody in the secondary or a linebacker, right? But it's going to be hard for a linebacker because you're not taking Bobby Wagner and you're not taking Louisville off the field, right? Those two guys are not, because you have a Jordan McGee behind them. So if you're going to trade, you're trading for a secondary guy. But again, which guy, secondary guy, are you going to take off? The secondary played better last week when they went to zone, not man. I think some of the secondary woes is not because of who the players are. I really believe that some of the secondary woes is because of what Joe Witt is calling, right? And how that is maneuvering. Because when he had man last week at the beginning of the game, we saw the holes that it was creating and how the Chargers were able to maneuver. But when he went to zone, a lot of the things locked up and shut down. The Chargers wasn't getting what they was getting earlier. So again, that proves to me it wasn't just players, but it was also coaching as well. And he might put players in a position where they were more comfortable in zone than they were in man. So those are things that I'm looking at. So when we look at it, I don't think Washington is going to make any type of trades. They should, but I don't think they're sitting on picks. I think that's going to be the big difference for them. Right?
That's the thing. As Off to Another World rightly says, this is a front office that does aggressively react to situations on the ground that changes. So I think you certainly can't rule it out. I hope you're right. My preference is not to make a trade at this deadline because we do need these draft picks. I think wherever Washington picks in the draft, they're going to be looking to move out and move down and get more picks. And Taj, I think that's a great question. Is there a player that is worthy to give up picks or even a pick for this trade deadline? I'll be honest. Newsome is somebody I would have been interested in. I think Newsome's a pretty good corner. And I think Paul's talking about Njoku, right? Is that who you're talking about, Paul? Brown's tight end. I think that's something that you could think about, but at the same token, we still have Ertz. I know we didn't catch the pass last week, but he's still pretty good for us. Bates is a blocking tight end and does well.
All right.
This team likes Yankoff. Sinnett's been okay at times when he's been in to block. We haven't seen him in pass patterns as much. I don't know if I'm making a move for Njoku. I know the Browns are definitely going to try and trade him because Fannon's going to be on fire for them the rest of the year. I don't care who their daggum quarterback is. So by the way, if he's available in your fantasy league, pick him up. And you need a tight end, pick up Harold Fannin. He is. I think he's going to be aces for them the rest of the year. So I think those are very good questions. I think Paul, that's an interesting one. And again, I'm I'm not dismissing it out of hand because, David Njoku is a very good tight end. And if you had Njoku and Ertz in a pass pattern, that's going to be a problem for opposing team linebackers and safeties.
You go 2 wide receiver sets, right? We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Going 2 tight end set.
Yeah, a lot of 12 personnel. Yeah, absolutely.
12 personnel, and move that way, right? And I think they could do that. We talked about how the New England Patriots lived off of 12 personnel for a couple of years when they had Aaron Hernandez, and what's the other kid name? And Gronkowski, right?
Yeah, so that was unstoppable when they had that.
Yeah, so you see that. So again, it's become Washington has depth, right? We thought they didn't have depth. This Washington team has depth, right? So there's no Commanders player that you definitely need back there. Some players that you would like to have back right now moving into this game. And so you're moving into moving into the game with the Bears. So we may get some surprises on Monday. You may get a Noah Brown. You may get a Terry McLaurin, right? Question to you guys. Do you want to see Terry McLaurin or Noah Brown on Monday? Or do you need them to be 100% before we see them?
I certainly want them to be 100%. I've seen other people talking about that maybe Washington felt like they could get through one more week without Terry. I think given how well some of the other wide receivers are playing at the moment, I'm happy to wait on Terry a little bit longer. I am. That was, and again, I'm pinning a lot on just one half of football because it was the second half against the Chargers was really, really good. We'll see if that form holds up over time. But given how well they played in the second half, how well and efficiently they moved the football, and again, it's just you've now invested a lot of money in Terry McLaurin. Rushing him back and him getting hurt worse is the one thing you can't have happen. Noah Brown doesn't mean anything to me at this point, except for what he did last year against the Bears. And honestly, if he hadn't had that Hail Mary last year, would we even be talking about whether Noah Brown's going to be back this week because it's the Bears and because of the Hail Mary and the scene of the crime and all that? I think I really think that's kind of where we're at with this is that, it would be nice to have him because, again, when he's healthy, he's a very good, talented receiver. But when he's healthy is the big problem at this point. So I'm not – if we have him, that's great. But they should wait on him too. But at this point, to me, he doesn't have a spot unless it's taking Chris Moore snaps, which, again, as I said earlier, anything that reduces his snaps, I'm for at this point.
Here it is. Santiago said this. Santiago, we don't need Terry until November, right? You don't need Terry until November.
We got a pretty tough schedule coming up, though.
If you keep running, my thing is you said the passing game, George. I think what makes it and what helped this team out and help this is the running game, right? You keep the ball. True. The running game is what helps them out, and it makes the having Terry McLaurin and having Noah Brown not very necessary right now because of what they're doing in the running game. Because if you can run a game, Jaden will pass the ball to anybody who can catch it, right? He will give it to Zach Ertz. He can do what you call, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, about the running backs in the backfield, right? So you talk about all that needs to be done. To me, if you run the football, these guys can sit out longer. Not to mention Deebo Samuels, right? So here it is. Deebo talked about how good Noah is in routing. DB's up, probably why he gets so many PIs. He does get PIs on him. He does. But the thing is, in ground and pound, Santiago, I agree. The thing is this: you have to be able to play the game. You have to be there in order for this to happen. And he's not there. And I know he had the knee injury. He healed from that. Again, guys have stepped up. Jalen Lane. I like Lane. Lane has stepped up tremendously, right? So if you tell me you get Noah Brown and Jalen Lane, Noah Brown has to be able to produce. When Noah Brown comes back, he almost has to produce Luke McCaffrey numbers and Jalen Lane numbers together.
Well, and here's the point I'll make. Everything you said off to another world is true, and what Deebo said about Noah Brown is true. But at this point, do I want to take away snaps from Jalen Lane or Luke McCaffrey? No, I don't. No, I don't. Those guys are stepping up and playing. They're helping. They're going to get their chances in the return game, but they need to get their chances in the passing game. And again, Jane Daniels is the kind of guy that will give them those opportunities because, yes, he locked in on Debo some last week, but the best version of Jaden Daniels spreads the ball around to everybody. So to me, he's going to give Luke that opportunity. He's going to give Jalen Lane that opportunity at least a few times, and I don't want to see that change. Honestly, I don't want to see that change. Just to give Noah Brown a few other chances as well. So I mean, I think that's the other part of the end of this is who's going to lose the snaps when either or both of these guys come back. Who's going to lose the snaps? That's what I want to see happen before I bless it or damn it in either direction.
We'll get to that in 1 second. Paul says another point.
And Paul, you're right. We have been mentioning it in post games. Well, I've tried to make sure to mention that in post games, but you are correct. It's amazing that it's gone unnoticed, but we will get to it.
Yeah, I mean, special teams too, because we talk about guys like Luke, who's been on special teams. You talk about guys like Chris Rodriguez, who's been on special teams, Jeremy McNichols, who's been on special teams, right? The young guys, the guys who are stepping up, right? There is a good problem for us to have these many weapons and guys developing. Like I said, George, you said it. This injury thing that has happened to the Washington Commanders early is not really a curse. It's been a blessing because many guys have really stepped up and performed that we would have never seen till later on in the season, right? So you know what you have with the backup guys. You know what you have with the second-tier receivers, or you know what you have. So those are things that you look at and say, you know what, we know what we're dealing with. We know what we have. So Gabe Cliffs, Kingsbury, and Dan Quinn an opportunity to see what he did, see what they had when it came to players like a Luke McCaffrey, who was only a special team guy because he got his kick return job taken, right? When you look at young guys like Bill, I know what this 7th rounder is able to do, and I'm good gracious. I'm glad he fell to us in the 7th round. But again, if Austin Ekeler does not get hurt, is Bill running the ball like that on a regular basis? So you look at those situations and say, Washington has gotten better developing players. All right, gotten better. Santiago says this. He said, I would drop more and bring in Crowder. I think I would drop more, and I don't think necessarily bring in Crowder. I think you would develop what you have, right? I don't think you definitely.
Well, no, but Santiago is right. I mean, if you're not going to get Brown and McLaurin back and you need a stopgap until they come back, Crowder is a perfectly good one. Again, anything that reduces Chris Moore's time on the field is something I'm for. Paul, you're talking about bringing up Brooks. I'm 100% with you about Ja'Cory Brooks. We at least got to see a little Tay Martin. Was glad to see a little Tay Martin last week. And frankly, again, I want to see more because of him because I've had it with Dadgum Chris Moore, and I just don't want to see. I just don't want to see him anymore. I'm tired of him dropping passes like what Santiago says, and that drop Sunday was the last straw for me. Because that was inexcusable, and it took away what would have been an all-time Jaden Daniels highlight you would have seen for the next 10 years. Because that would have been another amazing touchdown pass. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, Santiago.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're not looking at a long-term injury for Terry. And it sounds like Noah could even be back this week. So maybe we don't need to do that.
Yeah, I think Noah could be back this week. If it was me, I would hold off and I would allow Terry another week, some time. But again, not our decisions. George, before we get up out of here, again, so for those who came in late, who's the player that you think Washington most needed back?
Mm-hmm.
Who's your player?
I mean, I kind of feel like it, but he can't come back, so I feel like I can't answer Will Harris. So I'm going to default and say Terry because even though we've talked nicely about these wide receivers, I do think we still need more help at wide receiver, more than we do need help at offensive line. So it's like, for me, it's Terry over Sam Cosmi in that regard. Plus, again, I want to be as ultra conservative with Sam Cosmi as I can because of that injury.
I got you there. Todd says this. Todd said Will Harris, right? All right. Todd said
I love it, but he's supposed to be out for the year, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be. Well, if we go have a deep run in the playoffs, he's able to come back. If there's a deep run in the playoffs, Will Harris will be eligible to come back. Santiago says, "Oh wow, having Noah back would be great, right?" Santiago will having Noah Brown will be great to have him back this week. We'll see what he can do and how the field will be stretched. I'm also looking here. To me, I would say Will Harris too, but when we talking about injured players, I like Dedrick Wise. I'm sorry. That it would go on injured players who will come back, right? We know Dedrick Wise does not come back. So players that could come back, I'll have to go with Terry McLaurin as well. I think I have to go with Terry, but it's real close between Terry McLaurin and Sam Cosmi. Just because that Sam brings a different level. You don't have to worry about anything with the young quarterback, right? You can feel that pocket can feel safe because that side is shored up. Of course, Jaden hasn't taken many sacks this year, which is great. And as Washington offense has been moving the football, right? You can't argue a guy. You can't argue with the offense who's putting up a lot of rushing yards, right? You can't argue with the offense who's not letting the quarterback get touched. If you watch games, look how much time Jaden Daniels has to throw the football, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous time. So it's not time where you don't think he can throw. Those are things that you look at when you're looking at injured players who must need back, right? You want to Terry back. You want to Sam Cosmi back. But I think, again, in my opinion, the needed player in this case will be Terry McLaurin. So you can stretch the field. Will help guys like Bill, right? So now you can formation runs. Wide, too wide, spread them out, and then hand the ball off to Bill and let Bill go. Still run your powers, your counters, your whams, and things of that nature. So again, I would have to say Terry McLaurin. All right.
I want to make this point before we go as well. The rest of this month is going to be tough. Cowboys, Chiefs after we play the Bears. Those are going to be tough games that we're playing to finish this month out. And make this point too. And I'll throw this in there. We play the Seahawks too. Those are the games we have before the trade deadline. The trade deadline is November 4th. This picture could be very different after we play these 4 games in terms of what we think we need or we don't need, and who we need to come back and who we don't. So I want to just put that in everybody's mind here that those are that we're still only just starting to get a sense of what we've got. We're not even, we're about a third of the way through the season. There's a lot still we've got to figure out before we can make some definitive statements, especially when it comes to like trade deadline and what we need or we don't need. Hopefully, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but hopefully Dart's going to come out of his blue tent and get back out there for the Giants.
Hey, also the world said this, and I'm seeing confidence build with Lane and Luke. And you are seeing a lot of confidence build with Lane.
100%.
100%. And look at Lane was the other night. He caught the 16-yard pass from Jaden Daniels. I was able to slip into the slot and cut that. We have talked about so much about Luke catching the 50-yard pass. I think these young guys are building confidence for themselves, know that they can play in this league, confidence for this team, know they can play in the organization, and also the building confidence up for the quarterbacks who are throwing the ball, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota, that there's confidence that's being in place and put in place because we saw it last year, right? De'Ami Brown got hot towards the end of the season, right? You don't know which guys that you're going to need during playoff time. If this team is blessed enough to make it to the playoffs, and so you want everybody to be clicking on all cylinders. So you want everybody.
Yeah, De'Ami popped up and earned himself a $10 million contract based on that playoffs, basically.
Yeah, based off that playoff. So you want the confidence, and you want everybody to be in there. So it's where it's at, right? It's where it's at. So we looked at which injured commander is most needed back. George, you said Will Harris. I say Terry McLaurin. And the chat had their say as well. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you join us on Monday, right? I was going to say Sunday, but make sure you join us on Monday, right?
Right, Monday night
at 7 o'clock for our pregame. We will be previewing the Washington Commanders that they take on the Chicago Bears from Northwest Stadium, right? Game time is 8:25, but meet us here at 7 o'clock as we handle the pregame. Also, meet us here immediately following the game at 11:30ish as we do the postgame of the Washington Commanders as they take on the Chicago Bears. Make sure you subscribe to all our all Burgundy and Go Errrything YouTube channel and like this video. Also, make sure you subscribe and make sure you subscribe to our Twitter account. That's ABG_Errrything. Also, make sure you hit us up on Instagram as well. Again, we'll be here Monday night. All right, Commanders taking the Bears pregame. Also postgame as well. All right, George, any comments before we get up out of here?
But Paul's making me laugh because he said, "Could y'all pull up the postgame from last year?" I could hardly contain myself last year in that postgame.
Hey, you know what, Paul? I'm gonna pull some clips from that, Paul, and I'm gonna show it because I should have filmed myself because I jumped around my office like I was a madman when Noah Brown caught that football. I surely did. It was pumped. It was hype. I might pull a couple clips for that for the pregame on next week on Monday night with the pregame. But I saw that clip today and I still get goosebumps. If you watch the intro real quick, if you watch the outro, you'll definitely see the catch in the outro because that was something that was tremendous. One of the best plays I've ever seen in Washington, right? It is what it is. Because Washington was controlling that game. They got the lead taken from them late. And you thought the game was over. You thought they let one slip away, and there have it. You see a great pass. Dan Quinn said in the press conference today he has not talked to the team about that anyway because that was last year. Not the same team, not the same place, not the same organization.
And Jaden is like, I don't even want to hear about it.
Yeah, and nobody wants to even hear about it. Again, it was last year. This team is moving for bigger and better things. But again, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to all Burgundy Go Errrything, powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM. The chat has been great tonight. Thank you guys for rocking in the chat. Thanks for everybody that was been there.
Y'all.
Off to another wall. We had Taj in there tonight. We had Santiago in the night. We even had Mike in there. Mike Underwood's in there. We had Tim in there tonight. Say we want to appreciate each and every one of you for all the comments that you drop in us. Make sure you share this with somebody else, and we'll catch you guys on the pregame on Monday night. And I know you guys want to say it. I'm going to say it. Go New York Football Giants. Peace.